serve me.
Welcome to the 4th of July edition of Bourbon Over Headlines. Today we're going to Jefferson City, Missouri, which is the capital city of Missouri. So it's the 4th of July, we're going to a capital of a state named after president, very influential president, Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the Declaration of Independence, which is when we declared our independence from England 250 years ago. So I thought that was appropriate. So everyone, pour yourself a glass. I got my Horse Soldier whiskey poured. Pour yourself a glass, and let's go down this journey. So just a little bit, like we always do, a little bit about Jefferson City. Okay. Daniel Boone's son, the great Daniel Boone, his son laid out the plan, laid out how the city was going to work. Jefferson was the state capital in 1821 when Missouri became a state. 1825, it was officially incorporated. 1826 is when the state apparatus, everything about the state government, moved there. So it was named the capital in 1821. The city was officially incorporated in 1825, and about 1826 it was full-blown on our way to be a capital. Now, what's funny about this is Thomas Jefferson was alive in 1821. Now, Missouri, when you talk about Missouri, you always talk about, of course, you talk about St. Louis, but this is where Lewis and Clark began their expedition to go to the Pacific Ocean. The Pacific Ocean started in Missouri. And it was part of the Louisiana Purchase, which was done by Jefferson in 1803 when he was president. 1821, he was still alive. I believe he died in 1826 or 1825. I don't remember which one, but I know he died on July 4th. Him and Madison died on July 4th, couple hours apart, several hours apart from each other. It was 1826. That's right. I think it was 1826. 50 years after the country was formed, they both died. Hours apart, which is fitting since I got my American flag shirt on today. So one of the most famous buildings in Jefferson City is the Missouri State Penitentiary. It's no longer open. It was opened in 1836. Sonny Liston, the boxer, originally defeated Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali defeated him for his first championship. MLK's assassin, James Earl Ray, and Pretty Boy Floyd. All of them were in the Missouri State Penitentiary at some point in its long history. It closed, I believe, in the 70s. When I looked it up, it was in the 70s. I didn't write down my notes for some weird reason, but it was around for a while. Population. So we're in the 30s. We're in the 1930s. This week, so it's always doing the 20s. I'm moving it around. We did some stuff in the 1900s, early the aughts last week. This week we're in the 1930s. Population of the state of Missouri was about 24K. The current population of Jefferson City, Jefferson City was 24K. Current population is about 43K. Missouri State Penitentiary closed in 2004. These are my notes. And at the time it closed, it was the oldest continuously operating penitentiary west of the Mississippi. So it closed in 2004. Finally shut. So usually I do the famous people for last. So Cedric the Entertainer is from here. James Kirk, who is James Kirkpatrick, I think it says, was a state senator. He was also the editor of the Jefferson City Tribune, which is where I'm getting all my articles from today. So that's why he's on here. Also, OG Anunoby, which is part of the New York champion New York Knicks. He's current player on them. Joe Creedy, who is a former Major League Baseball player, and the inevitable legendary John Daly. If he's out there, I'm sure he would love this show. The golfer John Daly. Okay? So to our stories. First one's kind of tragic. Now, I know how we all feel. I don't know how we all feel. I personally, I don't have any issues with clowns. I know some people are definitely afraid of clowns. Some people don't like clowns. Since I like them or don't like them, if a clown's in the show, it's part of the show. I'm not gonna be like, oh, clown. But we have a story about a clown called Jolly Gennaro. The circus clown who made, quote, thousands laugh was found hanging today in a room. And this is a tragic thing with a lot of clowns from this era. And comedians, even now, they tend to commit suicide. They make everybody else happy, but they tend to be trigger warning, talking about depression, whatever. Trigger warning, talking about suicide. My bad. If you need help, contact the suicide hotline. I'll have the information below in the description. But he was found hanging today in a room of his home by his sister. Physicians said he had been dead for 48 hours. Known in his Georgie Wagner was his actual name. He had been despondent over a divorce from his wife. So sadly, he got divorced. He couldn't handle it, and he did the unthinkable. He was with Ringling Brothers, Bourbon Bailey, and he owed some property. So he wasn't a poor clown, but sadly, he couldn't handle it. So again, if you need help for any issues, I'll have a link to the information on the suicide hotline phone number in the description below. So if you need help, there's always help. Someone is always there to talk to. So let's bring this up a little bit here. Next story. So the next story is a little interesting. So in 1933 and 34, there was a World's Fair, or World Exposition in Chicago. And you wonder why Chicago? Well, Missouri and Illinois right next to each other. It was a big one. I mean, this is during the midst of the Depression. It had thousands and thousands and thousands upon visitors. And this is when, like, we didn't have instant technology like today. So the World's Fair would showcase new technology for the future, would project what homes and houses, what appliances, what cars, everything they thought would look like in the next 20, 30, 40 years. And this thing was sprawling along Lake Michigan. It had a club, the Pabst Club, yes, Pabst Blue Ribbon, that had Julie Garland and all the big performers from that day and time all performed at this club. Here we go. The 1934-33 Chicago's World Fair was called the Century of Progress. 39 million visitors. My bad, 39 million visitors. Judy Garland. A Graf Zeppelin. So, okay, so the big Zeppelins old school Zeppelins like the blimps are today, but the old school ones like the Hindenburg, most famous one, that was there to show off because until the Hindenburg, that was the way people got around. Because you didn't have long haul plane flights like we do today going across country, so it took you a little longer, but you had Zeppelins that would take you across. I don't know, sometimes I wish we could do that today. Probably a lot smoother than some planes, probably be a lot nicer, a lot more comfortable seats. Might be a little slower, but I don't have to worry about, the hectic at the airport. The only problem is that where we land in today's world. So yeah, Julie Garland. I also think like Bob Hope, a bunch of people performed at this thing. If anyone who was anyone at some point during the run of this World's Fair was at that Pabst Blue Ribbon Club and Bar. Now, it also, as I said, showcased cars of the future and the present. So one of these cars is a world famous car called the Pierce Silver Arrow. Only 5 were made ever. 3 survived today. It was debuted at this World Fair. Now, almost a century later, 92 years later, we have 3 of those left. I'm sure the people there thought Pierce would be a company that's still around, but sadly it's not. That's why there's only 5 of these made. So, also the Packard came out with a car. Packard Car Company came out with a car. So here's an interesting fact, okay? So the pure silver arrow in 1934 had 175 horsepower. Doesn't sound like a lot? Back then it's a lot. I wrote down a couple cars that we would all know that has the same amount of horsepower in today's world. So the Subaru Forester. Now Subarus are known for quality, safety, four-wheel drive, and it has the same amount of horsepower today than the pure silver arrow did in 1934. The Chevrolet Equinox, the GMC Terrain, all of these have 175 horsepower engines today. Think about that. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of cars that have a lot more horsepower today, but those are standard cars. Anyone has them. You see a ton of them on the road. The reason why I did this and wrote about the Wolfsburg is because I have a story. It's called Wind Got Her Fig Leaf. She's arrested. The wind blew it off. That's the defense Rosita Royce will offer when arraigned in women's court on charges of dancing at the World's Fair last night minus her fig leaf. She was arrested by the exposition censor. So basically, I'm guessing she had a fig leaf on certain parts of her body that couldn't be shown in public, and the fig leaf got taken off, whether the wind blew it off or something. That's her defense, and she was arrested for basically probably public nakedness would be my guess. The interesting part is women's court. So I'm in 1934 up until I don't know when, probably not much long after that. In certain areas they had courts just for women. You wouldn't all be in one court. You have a women's court and a men's court. So, but that's why I got to want to do some research on the Chicago World's Fair Century of Progress, because it was a funny story about a woman who got arrested for basically being naked. So that is quite an interesting thing. So next up, we're going to talk about a shipwreck. Not just any shipwreck. We're going to talk about the SS Islander. Okay? So the SS Islander was a ship in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Up in Alaska. This is in the Jefferson City River. Newspapers that are in capital cities tend to bring more stories from all across the country than just regular newspapers, because there are lots of more people there. People are coming in from the capital, from different states, different areas, because it's a capital city. So papers tend to have a more wide-ranging area of focus. So this Islander was specifically built for Alaska and the Inside Passage. Now, personally, I've been to Alaska. I've been on a boat that did the Inside Passage. I went on a cruise to Alaska a couple years ago with my amazing, lovely wife, who, by the way, has her own channel. It's called Moondog Tarot. Watch it. Give it a like, comment, subscribe to her channel. She's getting close to 1,000 subscribers. Find your sign. It's a sign about tarot and a little bit about astrology. So watch that. She will soon have a robust Patreon and a website and everything, but all that's in the description on her website. She does personal readings. She does everything. So if you're looking for something to kickstart the second half of 2026, she's the one to do it for you. So back to where I was at. It was 1901. It was sailing to Victoria, BC, with a cargo of gold bullion, valued at around $6 million in 1900, which is $235 million plus today in 2026 money. So, have we heard this before? A ship hits an iceberg. Hit an iceberg, but only 40 died. It wasn't a huge ship like the Titanic. In 1904, 1902, 1904, 1929, Frank Curtis tried to salvage stuff, which only yielded $75,000 worth of gold. So the majority of this gold is lost. So, my story: divers bring up rich treasures. salvage rotting bulk of steamer sunk off Alaska. Salvers, not salvagers, salvers, so that term has changed, of the wrecked treasure ship, in quotes, because there was rumored to be but there was some going on, but you know, back in these days, numbers got exaggerated. We don't know exactly how much was on it. They haven't found the manifest yet. Islander planned today to lower the rotting hull to the Seattle. Oh, to tow. So they were towing the hull. They brought it up and they towed the hull to Seattle, and thereby complete the most intricate, laborious operations in the history of maritime salvage. So they brought the Hulk to Seattle. Now, just because you bring the Hulk up does not mean that everything's still in the ship, as we'll find out. But this is, again, we're from the 1930s, so probably whatever is left has been found by now. Couldn't really find anything after this about it. Diving will continue, meanwhile, for the severed bow. So, like the Titanic, this thing, apparently icebergs like to split ships in half. Who knew? On the severed bow of the Islander in the Curtis Wiley Salvage Company, so Frank Curtis, that's his company, still hopes to find vaults containing the fortune of gold from the Klondike diggings, which the ship was reported to be carrying when it wrecked in the Stevens Passage in Alaska in 1901. The Islander was dragged for 390 feet of water and beached on Admiralty Island by the use of an intricate deep-sea diving bells equipment with steel hands, so basically two large cranes to pick it up, steel hands, two large boats, and cable in which the ship was cradled. So they cradled it, they get the cable underneath, they cradle it like a baby cradle. Like a baby. It required 2 years to beach, and she must be towed some 720 miles to get to Seattle. So it took 2 years to do this stop to get this part of the ship up, and they were still diving on the bow. Of course, they saw human skeletons, which the Titanic has human skeletons in it. All these shipwrecks, if there's people on that died that were still on the ship, there's that. Just a part of that. They saw fish. Supposedly they spent $200,000 on the work not to find the hull for gold. Then they would expect to realize something in their operations. So they're still trying to find it and trying to find the massive amount. Well, they did find $75,000 worth of stuff, but when you spend $200,000, you're not breaking even. So that sounds like something that if you want to maybe find something from a wreck from 125 years ago, maybe there's still pieces down there. Who knows? That's probably some cold water, even in today's world. 390 feet down, probably some cold water. So I would not do that. Okay, so trying to figure out what story to do next. Do I do the story about Antarctica or do I do the story about Pole City? Let's do Pole City. Now, Pole City, you may ask, what is Pole City? Not a pastime that many people would do today, let me tell you. Because probably it's boring, because unless you can find a way to charge your phone, you're not going to be doing much, you're just going to be sitting on a pole. So, in the 20s and 30s, it was a fad. So basically this is a way for people to get attention, maybe some money. So basically, a TikTok challenge of the era would be what this is. Social media / TikTok challenge. How long can you sit on a pole? No ideas, anyone. I don't want people sitting on flagpoles. I don't want any TikTok challenges of people climbing up on telephone poles, flagpoles, sitting on them for days on end. No. It was widely considered, begun by actor Alvin Shipwreck Kelly, who had the record of 51 days in 1930. Now, couldn't really find the name of the person, but in 1982 through 1984, a guy sat on a pole for 439 days and 11 hours. On a pole. Not protected from the wind. No cell phone, no nothing. Just people to talk to on the ground. That is the Guinness Book of World Records, by the way. So it was a fad in the 20s and 30s, and the reason why I do that is I have a story about it where a guy was arrested, John J. Flagpole Kelly, which not related to Shipwreck Kelly, said got a contract to sit on a flagpole for 500 days. No, $500 for sit for 5 days, so $100 a day. Someone called the cops on him. Detective Hugh Brilliant stood at the foot of the theater's flagpole yesterday and shouted, "Hey, Kelly, come on down. I've got a warrant for your arrest." So someone called the cops and they're going to arrest this guy for some weird reason. It didn't really say. He thought he had failed her, his wife, and everything, but Kelly reasoned otherwise, however, that if he comes down before Saturday, his $500 contract would be void for 5 days. Come and get me, Billington said, as he heard Flagpole say. But Billington weighs 230 pounds. He didn't go. So he's a big detective back in the 1930s. 230 pounds. For an hour, the crowd increased. Kelly visioned a bonus. Some bright minds suggested the fire department, big truck, and up came a hook and ladder. And climbed up. I love what they call them the smoke eaters. So, you know the hook and ladders where they roll up the hook and ladder? This writer, I love this term. I'm going to start using it. They're smoke eaters. They eat smoke. Again, sometimes I love how they write in these stories. Smoke eaters. And climbed up the husky smoke eaters, and down came Kelly. So I guess he did this because he felt he was failing his family what they didn't want, and he wanted to get some money. He figured this was the way to do it, because he was filing abandonment charges, so he abandoned his family. But he was trying to get some money for them, which 1934, average person, $500 is a lot of money. This is the Great Depression. This is all that. So this is a lot of money back then. So, but it was a fad back then. Let's not make it one again. Don't really want to go around and see on TikTok or Instagram flagpole sitting or pole sitting on top of a telephone pole. Someone will do it now. Don't blame me for what happens. Okay. So next up is a bicycle race. Okay, so we have the transcontinental bicycle race. So St. Louis, which is in Missouri, not the capital, but the biggest city in Missouri. The transcontinental bicycle riders bound from San Francisco to New York arrived in St. Louis early today and departed immediately. They expect to arrive in New York sometime Sunday morning. The team coming from New York, which passed through St. Louis Tuesday, took 50 hours to travel the distance. So basically there's a team coming from the West Coast going east, East Coast going west, several teams. So a little bit more information. So the transcontinental bicycle race, behind me you'll see I put Queen up. So they have a famous song called Bicycle Race. So let's just ride our bicycles. Bicycle, bicycle, bicycle race. Shout out. Great song. The start date was August 19th, 1934. With 700 cyclists doing 10-mile stretches. So it wasn't one person going the whole way. It was a team. It was teams. LA to New York team went 7. So this says the team coming from New York, my research says there's 2 teams coming, one from San Francisco, one from LA. So I don't know if they got it wrong, or I just couldn't find research of the teams going the other way. There wasn't, when I did more research, I didn't see the records. But it says here, the team from San Francisco to New York. LA to New York completed, the LA to New York team completed 7 days, 2 hours, and 51 minutes. The team from San Francisco to New York completed 7 days, 6 hours, and 18 minutes, so a day earlier. Oh, actually, they were longer by 4 hours. This passed a record of in 1896 of 13 days. So this beat that record by almost a week. So this race was about 3,000 miles long. The Tour de France is 2,700 miles long. So this race across the country from San Francisco to New York or LA to New York is longer and was longer than the Tour de France is today. And believe me, they went over mountains, they went through plains, they went through every territory. You go over the Rockies, you go over the Appalachians, you go over everything. So there's mountains, there's flat land, there's curves, there's whatever. Maybe we should have this, the Tour of America, where we go from San Francisco to New York on an epic bike race and challenge those French people on the greatest bike race in the world. I thought that was funny. We're so cartoon today that maybe we should ride some more bicycles. I think Freddie Mercury would agree. Let's ride our bicycles. So now lead us to the last story of the day. Yeah. So the 1920s, 1930s, and even earlier was the end of the age of exploration. You had people trying to find the Northwest Passage. They found the North Pole. They found the South Pole. So one of the people who were very famous South Pole explorers was Admiral Richard Byrd, who was a polar explorer. So in 1934, which is when this story takes place, headline, monoplane ready for Byrd when he gets well. So a monoplane has been prepared for a flight to the Advanced Weather Base where Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd is recuperating from illness he suffered during a solitary vigil of nearly 5 months. It has not been determined finally whether the flight will be made. The conditions about the advanced base are not favorable for landing. This is Antarctica. Okay. Even now they have trouble landing planes and landing supplies there. And it's 2026 because the weather's so unpredictable. Imagine back then. Back then they probably would have chanced it more because people were probably a little crazier, didn't care as much. If the hop is made and it is assumed Admiral Byrd will return in the plane, which would have to leave new observers at the weather observation post. So basically a change out. He would leave with a couple people, they would bring new people in. The latest radio report from Dr. Thomas C. Poulter, who headed a tractor party of 3 which went to Byrd's relief 2 weeks ago, said that the leader is making slow daily progress. Dr. Poulter reported that when the party arrived, Byrd had been so unaccustomed to using his voice, he talked in shouts, but now had unconsciously adjusted his voice to normal volume. So basically, he was so unaccustomed to using his own voice around the people that he always talking in shouts. Okay, a little bit more about this and Mr. Byrd. Admiral Richard Byrd, he was an admiral. He was a retired Navy admiral. So basically what he did is he went alone 123 miles south of the main base called Little America. So Little America is the main base. He set up his own little lodging, had a generator, had a vent. Okay, so he suffered from severe carbon monoxide poisoning from a faulty generator and poor ventilation. So basically he's out here, he's not being ventilated right, he's using a generator, carbon, and he's by himself. His only contact is with radio. Now, so 5 months, so he started this in about July, maybe around there, because he was rescued in October. This is from August, so My research said they rescued him in October. This said they rescued him in August. So maybe a little confirmation here. So basically 5 months. If the paper's right, I'm going to trust the paper because they're reporting it right then and there. So they said this is from August 27th. So if they rescued him in August, and he's waiting, so 5 months in August, so that's the 8th month, so March. So basically March. So the reason why they went and got him is his radio broadcast became more and more infrequent. He would start talking to, he would broadcast every day, talk to him, and then they became less and less frequent. And when they did become, he was incoherent. So they knew something was wrong, and they had to brave the Antarctic weather to do this. And speaking of radio broadcast, the first radio broadcast from Antarctica was in 1934, and it became a weekly broadcast. So basically, Admiral Byrd and other people in Antarctica, it became so popular, basically it became viral. It would be like a Netflix show today. Well, I followed people in Antarctica, but they did via the radio. It was a radio broadcast telling us how people were doing, telling us what was going on, the scientific stuff. That was the Netflix of the day, a weekly radio broadcast. Sort of like a weekly show telling you about this called Bourbon Over Headlines, which is you're currently watching. So that's what I have for you today. So before we go and before we get out of here, happy Independence Day. Happy 250th anniversary of the founding and the airing of grievances and the writing of the Declaration of Independence. And the moment that the United States of America said we will not be under the yoke of the English Empire. So happy 4th of July. Happy Independence Day. To you, to me, to everybody. Let's be proud. And remember, drink responsibly and let's be neat. And until next time,